Welcome to CM Guide podcast series. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something really critical, often pretty complex, in construction contracts. How an employer can actually terminate a contract under the FIDC Red Book. We'll be unpacking the entitlements, the mechanisms, how it all works, and especially the key differences between the older 1999 and the more recent 2017 editions. This stuff is super relevant if you're involved in big construction projects, because termination, it has massive implications. So our mission today is to give you a clear, sort of structured view, cutting through the jargon to what really matters.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When we talk about employer termination, what are we actually referring to, and why is getting the how right so vital?
Right. Fundamentally, termination just means ending the contract, the whole relationship, before the work's actually finished. Think of it like stopping a journey partway through. Now, this usually happens one of two ways. You've got common law principles, which generally need a really serious breach, something called repudiation. That means a failure that goes right to the core of the contract, showing a party basically doesn't intend to carry on. Or, and this is much more common and, frankly, preferable, it happens through specific rules written right into the contract itself. And the FIDC Red Book, which is, designed for projects where the employer handles the design, gives you a very structured way to do this. It's favored because, honestly, relying on common law can be uncertain, messy. Contractual provisions that give you a clearer process spell out who gets what. That certainty is gold in construction.
That roadmap sounds absolutely essential. Okay, let's start with the 1999 FIDC Red Book. A lot of projects still use it red. What were the main reasons an employer could terminate if the contractor was, well, in default? What do they have to show?
Yeah, the 99 Red Book laid out several paths. A common starting point was subclause 15.1, the notice to correct. This basically let the engineer tell the contractor, hey, fix this failure. It could be any failure to meet an obligation. Now, any sounds broad, and commentaries generally suggested it needed to be more than something trivial, de minimis. It couldn't just be a tiny slip-up to justify escalating things.
It's like a formal warning for something significant.
Exactly. A warning shot for something material. Then, if the contractor didn't comply with that notice, or if other big defaults happened, you'd look at subclause 15.2, termination by employer. Key triggers there included failing to provide the performance security that's the guarantee under subclause 4.2. Also a really important one, a significant and persistent failure to proceed with the works according to the contract. And I didn't just mean being a bit slow, it meant fundamentally not sticking to the program, not executing the work properly. That was a pretty powerful lever for the employer.
Persistent failure. Okay, not just a one-off bad week. What else was in there?
Precisely. Persistence or significance was key. Other triggers were things like subcontracting the whole job without permission or trying to assign the contract away. Can't just pass the buck entirely. And, of course, a big one, contractor insolvency or bankruptcy, or anything similar under the local laws that gave employers a way out if the contractor was going under financially. So yeah, the 1999 edition covered the main basis for employer protection if the contractor wasn't performing or was in financial trouble.
Sounds like a solid foundation. But as you said, things evolve. Construction contracts change. So what about the newer 2017 Red Book? What prompted the changes, and what are the significant updates regarding termination for contractor default?
That's a really good point. The 2017 Red Book isn't just a minor tweak. It reflects, decades of using the 99 version and learning lessons on real projects. Clause 15.2, termination for contractors default in 2017. It brought in some crucial new triggers and beefed up existing ones, gives employers clearer, maybe more decisive options. One of the biggest changes, I think, is the ability to terminate if the contractor doesn't comply with a final and binding engineer's determination, or, importantly, any decision from the the Dispute Avoidance Adjudication Board, as long as that failure is a material breach.
Wow, okay, so that ties termination directly to the dispute process.
Exactly. It links termination power right into the contract's own dispute system. If the DAA or engineer makes a binding call and the contractor just ignores it, the employer has a clear termination path. That really raises the stakes for complying with those interim decisions, doesn't it? It gives the DAB more teeth, pushes for resolution on site. It's quite a strategic shift.
That definitely changes the dynamic. What other major changes did 2017 bring for employer termination rights?
Another really key one is exceeding the delay damages cap. In the 2017 book, if there's a cap on delay damages specified, which is pretty common, and the contractor's delays blow past that cap, the employer gets a right to terminate.
Okay. That closes a potential loophole from the 99 version.
You could say that. Before, an employer might face endless delays but couldn't terminate once LDs hit the ceiling. Now, even if the employer hasn't actually deducted all those damages yet, just showing the cap has been exceeded is enough. It puts a much clearer potential endpoint on chronic delays, shifts risk, incentivizes getting the job done faster. It's something employers often added as a special condition in 99 contracts, but now it's just standard.
That makes sense. Any other areas tightened up?
Yes, the grounds around unethical behavior got broader. The 99 book mainly talked about bribery, but the 2017 version expands this. It covers situations where the contractor is found, based on reasonable evidence, to have been involved in corruption, fraudulent, collusive, or coercive practices. This lines up with the global push for more integrity. Now, what exactly found and reasonable evidence mean can still be debated. The standard of proof is important, but the message is clear. Serious ethical breaches can lead to termination.
That's quite a comprehensive set of updates. Feels like FIDIC is giving employers more explicit tools for dealing with performance and integrity issues. But let's shift gears a bit. You mentioned something earlier that sounds like a massive change. Termination for employers' convenience in the 2017 book. That wasn't really there in the same way in 99, was it?
No, not explicitly like this. It's a really fundamental shift, you're right. Subclause 15.5 in the 2017 Red Book flat out gives the employer the right to terminate at any time for the employer's convenience. Just give notice. It's incredibly direct, very broad power. In the 99 book, there was a subclause 15.5 called employer's entitlement to termination. But commentaries usually suggested it was mostly for situations like the employer running out of money, and using it had significant financial consequences for the employer, making it less of a simple convenience option.
So what does this mean in practice? Why would an employer use this, and what's the catch?
Well, think bigger picture. This convenience clause in 2017, it definitely changes the risk balance. An employer might use it if, say, government policy changes suddenly, funding gets pulled, or they just strategically decide the project isn't viable anymore. It gives them huge flexibility. However, and this is crucial, while the employer gets this power, the contractor gets strong protection financially. If the employer terminates for convenience, the contractor is entitled to significant compensation. It's not just payment for work done and materials. Critically, it includes the amount of any loss of profit or other losses and damages suffered as a result of this termination.
Loss of profit, so they get paid for the work they didn't get to do, plus damages. That sounds like serious protection.
It absolutely is. It's designed to protect the contractor from arbitrary decisions. It makes sure they're compensated not just for costs, but for the opportunity they lost. So for a contractor, it means you need really good records of your expected profit and potential losses if this happens. And for the employer, yes, you have the flexibility, but it comes at potentially high cost. You have to weigh that cost against the benefit of stopping the project. It's a commercial calculation, not a penalty.
Right, that makes the game changer aspect very clear.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say termination happens, default or convenience. What are the immediate next steps on site? And then how does the money side get sorted out?
Good question. The immediate aftermath is all about, managing the transition and minimizing more disruption. Once a termination notice takes effect, the contractor usually has to stop all work immediately, clear the site, get their equipment out. They might also have to assign ongoing subcontracts to the employer if asked to help keep things moving. These immediate steps are pretty similar in both the 99 and 2017 versions, kind of standard industry practice for winding things down.
And the financial side, after the dust settles.
Financially, if the employer terminates for contractor default, the engineer comes in to figure out the value of the work the contractor actually completed, plus any other money owed to them. But then the employer can claim back their losses and damages, and importantly, that includes the extra cost of hiring someone else to finish the job. Oh, and it's worth remembering something clarified by English law, that Triple Point Technology v. PTT case, which went through quite a journey in the courts. It basically confirmed that delay damages usually keep accumulating right up until the termination date, unless the contract specifically says otherwise. That cleared up a lot of uncertainty.
So LDs don't just stop when the notice is given.
Typically not. They run up to the termination point itself, unless the contract drafts it differently, which is now much clearer thanks to cases like Triple Point. And another practical thing, found in both editions, the employer often has the right to sell any contractor equipment left on site to recover money the contractor owes them. That itself can lead to arguments about valuation, of course, which highlights something important for both sides. Make sure the valuation of work, especially bundled items in the bill of quantities, is clear to avoid more disputes during handover.
That's a really practical point. Anything else on the financial wrap-up, particularly in the 2017 version?
Yes, the 2017 Red Book has subclause 14.14, cessation of employer's liability. It basically says that once the final payment certificate is issued, the employer's financial liability to the contractor ends, except for specific ongoing things like indemnities or, in really bad situations like fraud, gross negligence, deliberate default, or reckless misconduct by the employer. It provides a clear endpoint for the employer's exposure.
Wow, okay. We've certainly covered a lot of ground there. From the foundations in the 1999 FIDIC Red Book right through to the really significant shifts in the 2017 edition. That move to an explicit termination for convenience, plus the new default triggers like the delayed damages cap and the wider integrity clauses.
Yeah.
It definitely reshapes the landscape for everyone involved.
It really does. And maybe that leads to a final thought for you listening out there. How do these evolving termination clauses actually change the game for risk allocation and project certainty on complex jobs today? And perhaps more importantly, what new strategies do employers and contractors maybe need to think about to navigate these clauses effectively? How do you protect yourself while still getting the project built? Something to mull over.
Before you go, please don't forget to share, like, or subscribe. Also, have a look at other episodes and visit CM Guide website for better insights on this topic.